G'day mates, Mingo here and welcome to a quick discussion video. Now, at this point, I would say that I have a cup of coffee with me, but since we are going to talk about Cyberpunk 2077, I think a different type of cup is needed, a big one. So, I've got my special knowledge mic here, which is too big, but it does sell the point. So, with that said, let us get straight into the discussion what went wrong with Cyberpunk 2077's launch. There was a lot of hype behind the game when it was first announced because it came from the same developers that brought us The Witcher 3, and I have to admit I bought into the same hype because back at E3 in 2019, I was one of the few people that going to LAN at E3 to be able to watch 20 minutes of Cyberpunk 2077 gameplay. And, I sat there, it was such a nice room, and the gameplay I saw was mind-blowing, it was great, and it was just made me want more. It made me want to play the game. Now, we fast forward to 2019, the end of the year. Well, we were nearing the first release date, which was in April of 2020, and I guess around that point, or maybe it was in 2020, I can't remember, but it was around that point that we got our first delay. The game was delayed from April all the way to September, and we were like, okay, you know what? Okay, that's fine. We'll be okay because delays happen. And then we got closer to September, and the game was delayed again. It's like, okay, maybe they need a little bit more time, that's fine. And then, November. November. And we're like, okay, a little bit more delays though, it's alright, it's fine. And then the game went gold, and we were all hopeful that the game would not be delayed again. Oh, how wrong we were. Because a few weeks before the game was set to launch, boom, delayed into December again. And we were like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. It's just one more delay. Just getting those little details right. In hindsight though, we should have been worried because that last delay came after the game went gold. And I guess none of us wanted to see it because it's CD Projekt Red. There's these great developers that gave us The Witcher 3. So we wanted to believe in them, we wanted to trust them. So now comes December 2020, when the game finally comes out. We got the reviews for the PC version, and those reviews were glowing. 9 out of 10 there, 10 out of 10 here. Absolutely no transphobia over here. And we were all excited because the game was getting great reviews. It was everything that PC gamers had been waiting for. Of course, being a console player, I was eager to see how the console version ran. In fact, I was so confident that I would get a good game that I had asked for Cyberpunk 2077 for Christmas. And then, after a few days after the release of the game, the issues started coming. There were bugs galore in Cyberpunk 2077, and there were technical issues with the game. Like, to have problems in the AI, to have problems with the visuals not loading properly, to have problems with the way the turn game was running. And that was a big concern for console gamers. But I was eager to stick it out. I was eager to give the game a right hot go. And then things started to get worse. So a few days after the release, CD Projekt Red came out and apologized for the state that the game had been released in for past-gen consoles. They apologized. So I'm sorry. We are sorry. The game does not work as we intended it to. We will be giving out refunds to anyone that wants them. So that was a show of good faith, but it coming up too late because by this point, Sony and Microsoft were already offering full refunds for a digital version of the game, with Sony fully removing the game from the PlayStation Store, which was unprecedented. It was a sign of things to come, I guess. Here's where the fact matter hits the fan, because a lot of things have come out since the release of the game that really dampens my opinion of the game as a whole, and my opinion of the company that made the game as well, because you have to go through a few things. But before I get to those, let me tell you about my experience with the game. I got the game on Christmas Day. I was excited. I set it in, and I had to wait 2 hours for the updates to load up before I could actually start playing. And I did. The first thing I noticed is that there's some audio on that, which is crazy because I'm deaf, and I could even see it. But it's just audio on that. That's all. There were frame rate issues where the game would tag along in some of the more intense sections of the gunfighting scenes. And even when I was driving around, there were frame rate dips, and that was problematic, but it wasn't unplayable. And then there started between some visual issues started coming in, like textures not loading them properly and other stuff. And I would be driving along, and I would just crash into an invisible car that had not loaded in yet. That had the textures not loading it yet. That was a problem because it was just showing just how harmless the game felt. And I had 2 crashes in the game. I played about 15 hours and I had 2 crashes. Now, obviously, my mother is a programmer and she tells me if we have 1 crash, that's it. The game's not good. And I mean, yeah, I agree. So that's my opinion of the game. It's still a good game, but there are so many technical problems that completely hurt the experience that I wanted it to be. So in the end, I had to refund the game. So yeah, that's about it. Now here is where the fickle matter hits the proverbial blades of the fan. Shit hit the fan. The shit hit the fan. I don't know if you got that, but yeah. So up until the game's release, we had a lot of advertisements for the game. So like it was advertised as coming to a PC, but it was also heavily advertised as coming to consoles. And when I went to the city for work, I would see those big posters on the buses saying Cyberpunk 2077 is coming to Xbox One, but it also works great in the various mobiles. It says it also works great on the Xbox Series S and Series X, which is they're heavily advertising the current gen consoles over the next gen consoles, which is fine because the game had been in development for those consoles for a long time. But you have to know, with my experience with the game, it felt like the game couldn't run properly on current gen consoles. I was paying attention to a game from 2013, which is Grand Theft Auto 5, which was expensive, it was huge, and it was incredible. And I love technical marvels, not incredible AI and stuff. And that we go to 2020, where Cyberpunk 2077 has an incredible world, but it's missing a lot of the AI diversity that was present in the game from 2013. While we had smart passengers that walk around the car if you block their way on the sidewalk. In Cyberpunk, you only have someone walk up to your car. Oh, I guess I only to go this way with me. And they just turn around or walk away instead of walking around the car like we expect them to. Which, yeah, it just shows a lot of problems that some people had with the game. Not only was it a baggy, broken mess, it was also a disappointment because it was missing a lot of features that they were promised up to the game's release. As I said, CD Projekt Red have apologized for the bugs and the broken game, and they have promised a slew of huge updates to rectify the game's problematic issues, but that only accounts for technical bugs and for the game crashing. It doesn't account for the missing features and the AI, which I'm sure a lot of people were expecting to be alright in the final game, but yeah. Of course, it gets worse because those reviews I mentioned, all of them are only on PC, which gets worse when you consider that the company actually actively held back review copies of console versions. Some people did not get any review copies of console versions until the day before the game was coming out, and they were told they were not allowed to include any footage from those versions. So it's not only was CD Projekt Red holding back review copies, they were actively telling people to not show any footage because they knew what they were releasing, they knew what they were giving us, and they didn't want us to find out and turn up that we had already bought the game. And that is just shady, that is just shifty. It gets worse because even though there were the AAA darlings that were against crunch, that was one of the reasons people loved them. They were against crunch and they called out other companies, including crunch. And then it comes out in recent weeks that CD Projekt Red were issuing mandatory crunch to the game's development up to its release. So that already goes against everything they said. Now, again, game development is hard, and sometimes you have to crunch to get something up for investors so they can continue funding or development process. But it has been proven that crunch is not good for mental health, and it does not necessarily make a great game. So, in CD Projekt Red's case, it is already black mark against them, especially with the game coming out the way it did on consoles. This is a fairly new development when CD Projekt Red were developing a new game engine that was meant to come out and run the game. But as we all found out, that engine was being made in conjunction with the game, which is crazy. It's like they don't develop a game on a developing engine. They develop a game on a finished engine. That's how it works. That is how it all works. However, CD Projekt Red will intend to be an out of control train on a finished track. So like imagine that the game is a train and the tracks are the game engine and the game is careening on development going about as smoothly as it can. And then you find out the tracks are not finished. So to enlist a lot of tired, overworked software engineers, and they have to create new tracks and place those tracks down just before the train zooms down. Otherwise, they've got a train wreck, which is a good metaphor for the game state of the game and how the game's development came about, which is We move on to the development of the game itself, which we were all thought it would have taken 8 years. 8 years. Because the game was announced in 2012. We all wanted to believe that the game had been made over 8 years because of how expansive and incredible it looked. Of course, when the game came out, we all thought does not look like the game that was made in 8 years. it wasn't. The game had only just started development in 2016, and that is crazy. That game like this was made in 4 years, which is not good. It's not good, and I would have forgiven this short time if they had made the engine first in those 4 years and then developed the game in the last 4 years. They would have made it okay. They would have made the work of a realistic game engine. Nope, they made the game and the game engine at the same time. And it led to a lot of problems like missing AI, missing features, missing stuff. That this has happened before with The Witcher 3, their previous game. Despite a rocket launch, CD Projekt Red managed to fix those versions and they become the darlings of the game industry because The Witcher 3 was so well received that people basically forgave them for the buggy launch of The Witcher 3. And people were expecting great things from Cyberpunk 2077. Of course, games out, it's great on PC, not so great on consoles. And as it stands, I think CD Projekt Red have a lot to work for if they want to get back into gamers' good graces for Cyberpunk 2077. Me personally, I'm not going to wait for the update they've promised for the PC, PS4 and Xbox One versions. I'm just going to wait until they announce the next gen remaster for PlayStation 5, which is, I'm sure that will be alright. I've said all that I want to say about this game for the moment. It's disappointing. I wanted this game to be great, and it was great from a storytelling standpoint, but from a technical standpoint, it's not that great. There's missing AI, there's cut content and features, and yeah, that's all. So I guess that's it. Thank you so much for watching and sticking through this video if you're still here at the end. And I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye, mates.